The cold doesn't kill you quick. It takes its time. Clara Hayes learned that truth face down in the snow, her breath coming shallow, her vision fading white. She'd run from violence only to find death waiting in the mountains. One more hour, maybe less, and the storm would finish what fear had started. Then she saw him. A shadow moving through the blizzard. A stranger with a rifle slung across his back and eyes that had seen too much. She didn't know if he'd save her or leave her to freeze. But her body had already made the choice. It surrendered. If you're watching from New York, Lagos, Mumbai, or anywhere in between, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far Clara's story travels. Now let me take you into the wilderness where survival isn't guaranteed and trust is the rarest currency of all. The first thing Clara felt when she woke was warmth. Not the kind that creeps in gentle. This was aggressive heat, the shock of it against skin that had forgotten what anything above freezing felt like. Her eyelids cracked open, sticky and reluctant, and the world came to her in pieces. Wooden beams overhead, the smell of burning pine, a wool blanket scratched against her neck. She tried to sit up. Her body refused. Easy. The voice came from somewhere to her left, low, steady, not unkind, but not soft either. Claire's head turned slow, muscles protesting. A man sat near the fire, backlit by flames, his face half in shadow. He wasn't looking at her. His attention was on something in his hands, a piece of wood he was carving with a small blade, the shavings curling into the space between his boots. Where? Her throat seized. The word came out cracked and small. He set the knife down. My cabin. About 8 miles north of where I found you. 8 miles. Clara tried to piece together how she'd gotten here, but her memory was a blur of white and cold and the feeling of her legs giving out. She remembered falling. She remembered thinking it was over. You carried me? Wasn't going to leave you out there. The way he said it, flat, factual, made it sound like the only option that had ever existed. Clara studied him as best she could from where she lay. He was older than her, maybe late 30s, with a beard that looked like it had been trimmed once and then forgotten. His clothes were practical, flannel, wool, leather, worn but clean. He didn't look soft. Nothing about him looked soft. I'm Clara. He nodded once. Cole. Silence settled between them, broken only by the crackling fire. Clara's mind churned. She didn't know this man, didn't know his intentions. A month ago, she wouldn't have cared. Desperation makes you reckless. But lying here now, warm and alive, the old instincts started creeping back in, the ones that said men who help always want something in return. You hungry? Cole asked. She was. Starving, actually, but the question made her tense. I can eat. He stood and moved to a small stove in the corner. Clara watched him work, efficient, unhurried. He ladled something into a bowl, brought it over, and set it on the floor beside her. Stew. It smelled better than anything she'd eaten in weeks. Can you sit up? I think so. She tried. Her arms shook, but she managed to prop herself against the wall. Cole stepped back immediately, giving her space. That surprised her more than the food. Take your time, he said, returning to his chair. Clara ate slow. The stew was simple. Venison, potatoes, something green she didn't recognize. But it was warm and real, and it didn't taste like fear. She finished the bowl and set it down, feeling the weight of exhaustion pulling at her again. How long was I out there? She asked. Don't know. You were half buried when I found you. Why were you out there? Checking traps. She wanted to ask more. Do you live alone? How long have you been here? Why did you help me? But her body was shutting down again, dragging her under. Her eyelids drooped. Sleep, Cole said. You need it. She didn't argue. When Clara woke again, it was dark outside. The fire had burned low, just embers now, and the cabin was quiet except for the wind pressing against the walls. She felt stronger this time. Her limbs didn't scream when she moved. Cole was asleep in a chair near the door, his head tilted back, arms crossed. He'd given her the bed, a narrow cot against the far wall, and taken the chair for himself. Clara sat up slow, watching him. Even in sleep, he didn't look peaceful. His jaw was tight, his breathing measured. A man who didn't let his guard down, even when there was no one to guard against. She looked around the cabin, taking it in properly for the first time. It was small, one room, maybe 15 feet across. Everything had a place. Shelves lined with jars and tins, a rifle mounted above the door, a table with 2 chairs. No clutter, no mess. It felt less like a home and more like a machine built for survival. Clara's gaze landed on her coat, draped over the back of a chair near the fire. She slid out of bed, her legs shaky but functional, and crossed the room. Her coat was still damp, the fabric stiff with cold. She checked the pockets. Empty. Her chest tightened. Looking for something? She spun. Cole was awake, watching her. I had a bag. Left it by the door. He nodded toward the corner. Clara saw it then. Her canvas satchel, mud-stained and frayed. She grabbed it, opened it, and felt the knot in her chest loosen. Everything was still there. Not much. A change of clothes, a pocket knife, a handful of crumpled bills, but it was hers. You didn't look through it? She asked. Wasn't mine to look through. Clara stared at him. Most men would have. Most men would have taken what they wanted and called it payment for saving her life. But Cole just sat there, arms crossed, waiting for her to finish whatever she needed to do. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded. She sat back down on the bed, holding the bag in her lap. The silence stretched between them again, but this time it didn't feel as heavy. You running from something? Cole asked. Clara's hands tightened on the bag. Why do you think that? You don't end up in the Black Ridge Mountains in winter unless you're running or stupid. You don't strike me as stupid. She looked away. Maybe I'm both. Cole didn't push. He just sat there, patient, like he had all the time in the world. I was married, Clara said finally. The words came slow, unwilling. To a man who didn't like it when I talked back, or when I smiled at someone he didn't approve of, or when I did anything, really, that reminded him I was a person and not a thing he owned. Cole's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, a tightness in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. So you left, he said. So I ran. And he came after you. It wasn't a question. Clara nodded. I thought if I got far enough, he'd give up. Thought maybe the mountains would be too much for him. Maybe they were. Maybe. But she didn't believe it. Men like her husband didn't give up. They didn't let go. They hunted. Cole stood and moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to look out. Snow was falling again, thick and steady. Storm's not letting up, he said. You're stuck here for a while. Clara's stomach twisted. Trapped. Even in safety, the word felt wrong. I don't want to be a burden. You're not? I don't have anything to pay you with. Didn't ask for payment. She didn't know what to say to that. Kindness without strings, it felt like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. Cole let the curtain fall and turned back to her. You can stay as long as you need. When the weather clears, I'll help you figure out where you want to go. But until then, you're safe here. Clara searched his face for the lie, for the angle, for the moment when the mask would slip and she'd see what he really wanted. But all she saw was a man who meant what he said. Okay, she whispered. Cole nodded and returned to his chair. Get some sleep. We'll talk more in the morning. Clara lay back down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. The fire crackled, the wind howled, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she closed her eyes without fear. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Clara woke each morning to the smell of coffee and the sound of Cole moving around the cabin. He was always up before her, already dressed, already working. He didn't talk much, but he didn't need to. His actions spoke clear enough. He made her meals, he brought her extra blankets when the temperature dropped. He gave her space when she needed it and stayed close when she didn't. Clara started helping where she could. Small things at first. Washing dishes, folding clothes, organizing the shelves. Cole didn't ask her to, but he didn't stop her either. It felt good to be useful again. To have hands that built instead of defended. One morning, she found him outside chopping wood. The cold bit at her face the moment she stepped through the door, but she didn't retreat. Cole looked up, axe mid-swing, and frowned. You should be inside. I'm fine. You're still recovering. I'm not breakable. He studied her for a long moment, then drove the axe into the stump and stepped back. You know how to split wood? No. Want to learn? She nodded. Cole showed her how to hold the axe, where to aim, how to use her whole body instead of just her arms. Clara's first swing missed entirely, the blade glancing off the side of the log. Her second cracked it, but didn't split it. Her third went clean through. Good, Cole said. She kept going, falling into the rhythm of it. Lift, swing, split. Her muscles burned, but it was a good burn. A clean burn. The kind that came from effort, not fear. When she finally stopped, breathing hard, Cole handed her a canteen. She drank deep, the cold water sharp against her throat. You're stronger than you think, he said. Clara looked at him. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about how you feel, it's about what you do when you don't feel it. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that running didn't make her weak, that surviving meant something. Why did you come up here? She asked. Cole's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Same reason you did, he said finally. Needed to get away from something. What were you running from? Myself, mostly. He picked up the axe and went back to work. Clara didn't push. She understood that some doors only opened when you stopped trying to force them. A week passed, then 2. The storm outside didn't break, but inside the cabin, something else did. The wall between them, the careful distance they'd both maintained, started to crack. It happened in small moments. Clara laughing at something Cole said and realizing it was the first time she'd laughed in months. Cole watching her read by the fire and forgetting, just for a second, that he'd chosen to live alone. One night, Clara found an old deck of cards in a drawer and challenged him to a game. Cole raised an eyebrow. You any good? Guess you'll find out. She won the first hand, and the second. By the third, Cole was leaning forward, competitive edge creeping into his expression. You hustling me? He asked. Clara grinned. Maybe. Where'd you learn to play like that? My brother. He was a card sharp. Taught me everything he knew before he... She stopped. The smile faded. Cole didn't ask. He just dealt the next hand. They played until the fire burned low and the cards became too hard to see in the dimming light. When Clara finally stood to go to bed, Cole caught her wrist, gently, barely a touch. You don't have to tell me, he said, but if you ever want to, I'll listen. Clara looked down at his hand, then back at his face. I know. He let go. That night, lying in the dark, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not safety, she'd had that for days now. This was different. This was hope. The next morning, everything changed. Clara woke to the sound of Cole's voice, low and urgent. Get up. She sat up fast, heart hammering. Cole was at the window, rifle in hand, staring out into the white. What's wrong? Tracks, he said. Fresh ones, leading up to the cabin. Clara's blood turned to ice. How fresh? Last hour, maybe less. She scrambled out of bed, pulling on her boots. Do you think... I don't think anything yet, but we're not taking chances. He moved to the door, checking the lock, then crossed to the rifle rack and pulled down a second gun. He held it out to her. You know how to use this? Clara stared at the weapon. Her hands shook. I know. Then stay behind me and don't make a sound. The wind howled outside. The cabin walls creaked. And then, somewhere in the distance, Clara heard it. A voice, calling her name. Her legs went weak. She knew that voice. Knew it the way you know a scar. Intimate, permanent, carved into you by pain. Cole turned to her. Who is that? Clara's throat closed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Clara! Cole's voice cut through the panic. Who is that? She forced the words out. My husband. Cole's expression went stone cold. He looked back at the window, then at her, and when he spoke, his voice was steady as iron. He's not getting in. Clara wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that these walls, this man, This fragile safety she'd found could hold against the storm that was coming. But she knew better. She knew that men like her husband didn't stop, didn't quit. They came for what they believed was theirs, and they didn't leave until they'd taken it back, or until someone made them. The voice came again, carried on the wind like a blade. "Clara, I know you're out here." Cole moved fast. He crossed to the far wall and pulled down a heavy tarp, spreading it across the window. The cabin went darker, the firelight suddenly the only source of illumination. "Stay away from the glass," he said. Clara's legs barely held her. She pressed her back against the wall, hands trembling. The rifle Cole had offered her still leaned against the bed frame, untouched. She couldn't pick it up, couldn't make her fingers work. "How many?" Cole asked, his voice low. "What? How many men did he bring?" Clara's mind raced. I don't know. He had friends, men who owed him favors, but I don't know if... Guess? 2, maybe 3. Cole nodded once, processing. He checked the rifle in his hands, then moved to the door and tested the barricade. A thick wooden beam he'd dropped into place the moment he saw the tracks. It would hold. For a while. "Clara, listen to me." He turned to face her fully. "I need you to tell me everything about him. How he thinks, what he'll do. He'll..." Her voice broke. "He'll burn it down. If he can't get in, he'll burn it. Not in this weather. Snow's too heavy. Fire won't catch. Then he'll wait. He's patient when he wants to be. He'll wait us out." Cole's jaw tightened. "How long were you married?" 4 years. "He ever hunt?" "Yes. Deer, mostly. Sometimes elk. Then he knows cold, knows how to survive it." Clara nodded, hating that she had to confirm it. Hating that every piece of information she gave Cole was another weapon her husband had against them. The voice outside changed direction. It was moving, circling the cabin. "I'm not angry, Clara. I just want to talk." Lies. Every word a lie. Clara had heard that tone before. The false calm, the practiced sweetness. It always came right before the violence. Cole moved to the opposite window and pulled back the tarp just enough to see out. Snow was falling thick, visibility maybe 20 feet. He scanned the tree line, looking for movement. "There," he muttered. "What?" "2 of them. Maybe 30 yards out, northwest corner." Clara's stomach dropped. "What are they doing?" "Watching, waiting to see if we'll make a mistake." He let the tarp fall and turned back to her. "Your husband, what's his name?" "Marcus. Marcus Hayes." "Marcus?" Cole repeated like he was filing it away. "He know you made it this far?" "I don't know how he could. I covered my tracks. I didn't tell anyone where I was going." "He's here anyway." Clara felt the weight of that settle over her. Marcus had found her. Through the snow, through the mountains, through every mile she'd put between them, he'd found her. "I should leave," she said suddenly. "I should go out there. If I go, maybe he'll..." "He'll what? Take you home and everything will be fine?" She flinched. Cole's expression softened, but only slightly. "You're not going out there. You understand me? You're not giving him a damn thing. He'll kill you. He can try." The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it terrified her. Clara had seen men try to stand up to Marcus before. She'd seen what happened to them. "You don't know him," she whispered. "I know enough." Cole crossed back to the rifle rack and pulled down a box of ammunition. He loaded it methodically, each bullet sliding into place with a soft click. Clara watched his hands, steady, unhurried, no fear, no hesitation. "You've done this before," she said. "Done what?" "This. Whatever this is." Cole didn't answer right away. He finished loading the rifle and set it aside, then looked at her. "I was a ranger, years ago. Spent a lot of time in places where people didn't want me. Got good at making them regret that." "Why'd you leave?" His expression went cold. "Because I got tired of watching good people die for bad reasons." Before Clara could respond, something hit the side of the cabin, a sharp crack like a stone against wood. She jumped. Cole didn't. "Testing the walls," he said, "seeing how solid they are." Another impact, then another. Not stones, ice, packed hard enough to make a sound. "They're trying to scare us," Cole said. "It's working." He almost smiled. Almost. Fear's just information, Clara. It tells you something's wrong. What you do with that information is what matters. What are we going to do? Right now, we wait. Let them get cold. Let them get frustrated. Men make mistakes when they're uncomfortable. Clara wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that Marcus and whoever he'd brought with him would give up, turn around, go home. But she knew better. Marcus didn't get frustrated. He got mean. The impact stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Cole moved back to the window and looked out. His shoulders tensed. "What?" Clara asked. "They're splitting up. One's moving east, the other's circling around back." "What does that mean?" "It means they're looking for a weak point." He turned and scanned the cabin, his gaze landing on the small back window near the stove. It was narrow, barely wide enough for a man to fit through, but it was there. "Can you shoot?" he asked. "I told you." "I know what you told me. I'm asking if you can learn fast." Clara looked at the rifle leaning against the bed. Her hands were still shaking. "I don't know. That's not an answer." She forced herself to take a breath, forced herself to think past the fear. "Yes, I can learn." Cole picked up the rifle and brought it to her. "This is a lever action, simple as they come. You pull this back, push it forward, it's ready to fire. You aim, you squeeze, don't pull, and it'll do the rest." He demonstrated, the motion smooth and practiced. Then he handed it to her. The weight surprised her. It was heavier than she expected, solid and real in a way that made her heart pound. "You're not going to fire unless you have to," Cole said. "But if someone comes through that back window, you don't hesitate. You don't ask questions. You aim center mass and you fire. Understood?" Clara nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. "Say it." "I understand." "Good." He moved toward the back of the cabin, positioning himself where he could see both the window and the door. "They're going to try to get us to panic. Don't. Stay calm, stay quiet, and if something happens, you follow my lead." Clara gripped the rifle tighter. Her palms were sweating despite the cold. Minutes passed. The wind howled. The fire crackled. And then, a voice, closer this time, right outside the door. "Cole Mercer." Clara's blood went cold. Cole's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. "Yeah," Cole called back. "That's me. Thought that was you. Heard you disappeared up here a few years back. Guess the rumors were true." "Who's asking?" Name's Ray Porter. Used to run with the 7th Cavalry out of Fort Kearney. You remember me?" Cole's jaw tightened. "I remember." "Then you know I don't bluff. I know you got court-martialed for killing a man over a card game. That what you mean?" A pause. Then laughter, low and cold. "Still got that mouth on you, Mercer. Some things don't change." "What do you want, Porter?" "Not me. Him." The voice shifted and Clara knew Marcus was there now, standing just out of sight. "I want my wife back." Cole didn't look at Clara, didn't flinch. "She's not your wife anymore. That's not how marriage works. It is when you beat her half to death." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. "She tell you that?" Marcus's voice was calm, too calm. "She tell you she tried to kill me? That she came at me with a kitchen knife while I was sleeping?" Clara's breath caught. Cole glanced at her just for a second. "That true?" he asked quietly. She wanted to lie, wanted to deny it, but the look in Cole's eyes told her he'd know. "Yes," she whispered. Cole nodded slowly. Then he turned back to the door and raised his voice. "Good. Should have finished the job." A beat of silence. Then Marcus spoke again, and the false calm was gone. "Open the door, Mercer. This doesn't have to get ugly." "It's already ugly. You tracked a woman through a blizzard to drag her back to a life she doesn't want. That's about as ugly as it gets. She's my wife. She's a person, and she doesn't want you. You don't know what she wants. I know she'd rather freeze to death in the mountains than go back to you. That tell you enough?" Another silence. Longer this time. "You got food in there?" Marcus asked. "Water? Enough to last a week? 2?" Cole didn't answer. We can wait, Marcus continued. Storm's not going to last forever. Eventually, you'll have to come out. And when I do, I'll put a bullet in you. Marcus laughed. Big talk for a man hiding in a cabin. I'm not hiding. I'm giving you a chance to leave. And if I don't, then you won't leave at all. The weight of the threat hung in the air. Clara could hear her own heartbeat, fast and erratic. She waited for Marcus to respond, to escalate, to do something. But he didn't. Instead, footsteps moved away from the door, crunching through snow, fading. Cole exhaled slowly. They're backing off. For how long? Clara asked. Not long enough. He moved to the window again and watched. Clara stayed where she was, rifle clutched in her hands, trying to slow her breathing. You really try to kill him? Cole asked without turning around. Yes. Why didn't you? I couldn't. I wanted to. I stood there with the knife and I just couldn't. Why not? Because I thought if I did, I'd be just like him. Cole turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. You're nothing like him. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you ran instead of staying. Because you'd rather die free than live in a cage. Santes pasmam. He crossed the room and crouched in front of her, his eyes level with hers. That takes more courage than killing ever could. Clara felt something crack inside her. Not breaking, shifting, like a bone that had healed wrong finally being set right. I'm scared, she admitted. I know. What if he won't? You can't promise that. No, Cole said, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to make sure he doesn't get near you, and I've got a lot of power up here. Clara believed him. Not because she wanted to, but because the man crouched in front of her had already proven again and again that his word meant something. Okay, she whispered. Cole stood and moved back to his post by the window. The cabin settled into an uneasy quiet. Clara shifted her grip on the rifle, her muscles aching from holding it so tight. What happens now? She asked. Now we wait, and we stay smart. Hours crawled by. The storm outside thickened, visibility dropping to nothing. Clara watched the back window, her eyes straining in the dim light. Every sound made her jump, the wind, the creak of the cabin settling, the pop of wood in the fire. Cole barely moved. He stood like a statue, patient and watchful, his rifle always within reach. You should rest, he said eventually. I can't. You need to. If this goes long, you'll need your strength. What about you? I'll rest when they're gone. Clara wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. Cole wasn't the kind of man who compromised when it came to survival. She lowered the rifle and sat on the edge of the bed, her body heavy with exhaustion. She didn't mean to fall asleep. But at some point, the adrenaline faded and the warmth of the cabin pulled her under. She woke to Cole's hand on her shoulder, shaking her gently. Clara. Her eyes snapped open. The cabin was darker. The fire had burned low, just embers now. What's wrong? They're moving again. She sat up fast, reaching for the rifle. Where? Backside of the cabin. 2 of them. They're trying the window. Clara's heart slammed into her throat. She moved to the back wall, positioning herself where Cole had told her to. Through the narrow window, she could see shapes moving in the snow, shadows against white. What do I do? She whispered. If they break the glass, you fire. Aim low if you have to. Just make noise. I said aim center mass if they come through. Right now I just need them to know we're armed. One of the shadows moved closer. Clara could see him now, a man, broad-shouldered, wearing a heavy coat. He reached out and tested the window frame, pushing against it. Cole, I see him. Cole moved to the opposite side of the window, rifle raised. That's far enough, he shouted. The man froze. Then he stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Just checking, he called out. Making sure you folks are comfortable in there. Real considerate, Cole said. Now back off before I put a hole in you. The man laughed, but he moved away, disappearing into the snow. Clara's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the rifle. Cole noticed. You did good, he said. I didn't do anything. You didn't panic. That's something. She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel capable, but all she felt was fear and the growing certainty that this wasn't going to end quietly. They're not going to give up, are they? She asked. Cole didn't answer right away. He lowered his rifle and moved back to the main window, scanning the tree line. No, he said finally. They're not. So what do? We make them think we're weaker than we are. Let them get confident. Then we hit them when they're not expecting it. You want to go out there? Not yet, but soon. Clara stared at him. That's suicide. It's strategy. If we stay in here, we're sitting ducks. Out there, I've got the advantage. How? Because I know this mountain. They don't. He said it with such certainty that Clara almost believed it could work. Almost. When? She asked. When the moment's right. The wind picked up, rattling the walls. Clara pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and tried to imagine what the moment would look like. Tried to imagine Cole out there in the snow, hunting men the way he hunted deer. The thought made her sick, but the alternative, staying trapped in this cabin, waiting for Marcus to find a way in, was worse. Tell me about him, Cole said suddenly. Clara blinked. What? Marcus. Tell me about him. How you met. What made you stay? She didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to give those memories air, but Cole was watching her with that same patient expression, and she realized he wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking because he needed to understand the enemy. We met at a church social, she said quietly. He was charming, polite. He made me feel like I mattered. When did that change? 3 months after the wedding. I burned dinner. He didn't yell. He looked at me like I'd disappointed him, like I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking. And it got worse. Slowly. Little things at first. Comments about my clothes, my cooking, the way I talked to other people. Then he started controlling where I went, who I saw. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already trapped. Yes. Cole nodded slowly. Men like that don't stop. They don't learn. They just keep taking until there's nothing left. I know. Good. Then you know there's no reasoning with him, no compromise, no middle ground. Clara looked down at her hands. I just wanted him to let me go. He won't. Not unless someone makes him. The words settled heavy between them. Clara knew Cole was right, knew that Marcus would never stop, not until she was back under his control or dead. I don't want you to die for me, she said. Cole looked at her, his expression softening just a fraction. I'm not planning on it. But if it comes to that, it won't. Cole? Clara. He crossed the room and crouched in front of her again. I didn't pull you out of that snow just to hand you back to the man who put you there. You hear me? That's not happening. Tears pricked at her eyes. She blinked them back. Why do you care? Cole hesitated. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. Because I know what it's like to run. To feel like the world's got no place for you. And I know what it's like when someone gives you a chance to start over. He met her eyes. You deserve that chance. Clara's throat tightened. She wanted to say thank you, wanted to say something that captured the enormity of what he was doing for her. But the words wouldn't come. So instead, she reached out and took his hand. Cole looked down at their joined hands, then back at her face. He didn't pull away. We're going to get through this, he said. Clara nodded, even though she didn't believe it, even though every instinct she had screamed that this was going to end in blood. But for Cole, she let herself hope. The night dragged on. The storm didn't let up. And somewhere outside, in the cold and the dark, Marcus waited. Dawn came gray and cold, the kind of morning that felt like the sun had given up trying. Clara woke slumped against the wall, the rifle still across her lap, her neck stiff from sleeping upright. Cole was at the window, same position he'd been in when she'd dozed off. She didn't think he'd slept at all. Anything? She asked, her voice rough. They built a fire about 50 yards out. Been there since 3. Clara pushed herself up, wincing at the protest in her muscles. A fire? Why would they? They want us to see it, want us to know they're not going anywhere. She moved to the window and looked out. Through the trees she could make out the orange glow, barely visible through the falling snow. Smoke rose in a thin column, dissipating into the gray sky. How many? She asked. 3, maybe 4. Hard to tell with the snow. More than she'd thought, more than Cole could handle alone, no matter how good he was. The realization settled in her stomach like a stone. We can't stay here forever, she said. No, we can't. Cole moved away from the window and crossed to the small stove. He poured what was left of the coffee into a tin cup and handed it to her. It was lukewarm, bitter, but Clara drank it anyway. I'm going out there, Cole said. Clara nearly choked. What? Not to fight, to talk. Cole, they're not going to leave unless I give them a reason to. Right now, they think they've got us cornered. I need to change that. By walking into their camp? By showing them I'm not afraid. Clara set the cup down, her hands shaking. They'll kill you. Maybe, but I don't think so. Porter knows me, knows what I'm capable of. He'll want to hear what I have to say. And Marcus? Cole's expression hardened. Marcus is going to hear it whether he likes it or not. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to scream at him that this was insane, that he was going to get himself killed for a woman he barely knew. But the look on his face told her the decision was already made. What do you want me to do? She asked quietly. Stay here. Keep the rifle loaded. If I'm not back in an hour, you barricade yourself in and you don't come out for anyone. Understood? Cole? Understood? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Cole pulled on his heavy coat and checked his rifle one last time. Then he paused at the door, looking back at her. If something happens to me, he said, there's a trail that runs east from here, follows the ridge line for about 3 miles, then drops down into a valley. There's a town called Milford at the bottom. You get there, you'll be safe. Clara's throat tightened. I'm not leaving you. You will if you have to. He didn't wait for her to respond. He lifted the barricade, opened the door, and stepped out into the cold. Clara moved to the window and watched him go. He walked slow, deliberate, the rifle slung across his back in a way that said he wasn't looking for a fight, but wouldn't run from one either. The snow came down heavy, and within seconds he was just a dark shape moving through white. Then he was gone. Clara stood frozen, her breath fogging the glass. Every instinct she had screamed at her to run after him, to stop him, to do something. But she stayed where she was, gripping the windowsill so hard her knuckles went white. The minutes crawled. 5, 10, 15. Nothing. Clara forced herself to move. She checked the rifle, made sure it was loaded, then positioned herself where she could see both the front door and the back window. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. 20 minutes. The silence was unbearable. No gunshots, no shouting, just the wind and the endless whisper of falling snow. 30 minutes. Clara's mind raced through every possible outcome, each one worse than the last. Cole shot in the back. Cole taken prisoner. Cole bleeding out in the snow while Marcus stood over him, smiling that smile she knew too well. 40 minutes. She was about to break her promise and go after him when she heard it, footsteps crunching through snow, coming fast. Clara raised the rifle, her heart slamming against her ribs. The door swung open. Cole stepped inside, breathing hard, snowflakes clinging to his beard. Alone. Clara lowered the rifle, relief flooding through her so fast it made her dizzy. What happened? Cole shut the door and dropped the barricade back into place. We talked. And? And they're not leaving. Clara's stomach dropped. Then what was the point? The point was to buy us time. Cole moved to the fire and held his hands out to the heat. Porter's got 2 men with him, ex-military, like him. They're cold, they're tired, and they're starting to wonder why they're risking their necks for a man's runaway wife. But they're still here. For now, Marcus is paying them. Promise them $200 each if they bring you back. $200. A fortune for men like that. Clara felt sick. What did you tell them, Ma? She asked. I told them the truth, that you're not going back, that if they try to take you, someone's going to die. And I made sure they understood it wouldn't be me. Clara stared at him. You threatened them. I gave them information. What they do with it is up to them. And Marcus? What did he say? Cole's jaw tightened. He asked if you were worth dying for. Clara's breath caught. What did you say? I said that's the wrong question. The question is whether he's worth killing for. And I made it real clear that the answer's yes. The weight of those words hung in the air. Clara didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process the fact that this man, this stranger who'd pulled her out of the snow 3 weeks ago, was willing to kill for her. Why? She whispered. Cole looked at her, his expression unreadable. Because some things are worth fighting for, and some people don't deserve to keep what they've taken. Before Clara could respond, something hit the side of the cabin. Hard. Not ice this time, something heavier. Cole moved to the window and looked out. His face went dark. What is it? Clara asked. They're testing the walls, seeing how much force they can take. Another impact, then another. The cabin shuddered with each blow. They're going to try to break in, Clara said. Let them try. But even as he said it, Clara could see the calculation in his eyes. 3 men, maybe 4, against 2, and Clara barely knew which end of the rifle to point. The impact stopped. Silence settled again, thick and oppressive. Cole, Clara said quietly, we can't win this. We don't have to win. We just have to make it too expensive for them to keep trying. And if that doesn't work? Cole didn't answer. He didn't have to. They both knew what happened if it didn't work. Hours passed. The attacks came in waves, ice thrown against the walls, something heavy slammed against the door, voices shouting threats and promises through the wind. Cole ignored all of it, his focus absolute. Clara tried to match his calm, but every sound made her jump. Every silence made her worse. Afternoon bled into evening. The storm thickened, and then, just as the light was starting to fail, Clara heard it. Footsteps. On the roof. She looked up. Cole was already moving, rifle in hand. They're coming through the top, he said. Can they do that? If they're desperate enough. The footsteps moved across the roof, slow and careful. Clara could hear the creak of wood, the scrape of boots against shingles. What do we do? She whispered. Cole pointed to the corner of the cabin, away from the door and windows. Get over there. Stay low. Don't move unless I tell you to. Clara obeyed, her heart hammering. She crouched in the corner, rifle clutched against her chest, and watched as Cole positioned himself in the center of the room, his weapon trained on the ceiling. The footsteps stopped. Everything went quiet. Then, a crash. Wood splintering, snow and debris falling through a hole in the roof. A man dropped through, landing hard on the floor. He scrambled to his feet, reaching for the pistol at his belt. Cole fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The man went down, clutching his shoulder, screaming. Cole crossed the room in 2 strides and kicked the pistol away, then pressed the barrel of his rifle against the man's head. Move and I'll finish it, Cole said. The man froze, breathing hard, blood seeping between his fingers. Where's the others? Cole demanded. Outside, waiting. For what? For me to open the door. Cole glanced at Clara, then back at the man. That's not happening. They'll come anyway. Let them. Cole grabbed the man by the collar and dragged him toward the back of the cabin, shoving him against the wall. The man groaned, his face pale with shock. Your Porter's man? Cole asked. The man nodded. Then you tell Porter this. Tell him I gave him a chance to walk away. Tell him what happens next is on him. He won't listen. Then he's a fool. Cole turned to Clara. Watch him. If he moves, you fire. Cole, I can't. Yes, you can. He moved back to the center of the room, scanning the hole in the roof. Snow was falling through it, piling on the floor. Cold air poured in, killing the warmth the fire had built. They'll come through that hole, Cole said. We need to block it. With what? Cole looked around, then grabbed the table and flipped it on its side. It wouldn't cover the hole completely, but it would make it harder to drop through. Another sound, this time from the door. The barricade shuddered under a heavy blow. They're hitting it with something, Cole muttered. A log? Maybe. The door shook again. The barricade held, but Clara could see the wood starting to splinter. Cole, I know. He moved to the door and braced his shoulder against it, adding his weight to the barricade. The next impact nearly knocked him back. He dug his heels in, jaw clenched. Clara, I need you to cover the back window, he said through gritted teeth. Clara scrambled to her feet, keeping the rifle trained on the wounded man as she moved. He didn't try anything, just sat there, bleeding, watching her with wide eyes. She positioned herself at the back window and looked out. At first, she saw nothing. Then, movement. A shadow detaching from the trees, moving fast. Someone's coming, she called out. How many? One? No. So, the window exploded inward. Glass shattered, spraying across the floor. A man's arm reached through, fumbling for the latch. Clara didn't think. She raised the rifle and fired. The recoil slammed into her shoulder, knocking her back. The man outside screamed, his arm yanking back through the broken window. Blood splattered across the snow. Clara stood frozen, the rifle shaking in her hands. She'd shot someone. She'd actually shot someone. Good, Cole shouted from the door. Do it again if you have to. But Clara couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The reality of what she'd just done crashed over her like a wave. The door took another hit. The barricade cracked. Cole swore and shifted his weight, but Clara could see he was losing ground. Clara, he yelled, I need you here. She forced her legs to move, crossed the room, pressed her back against the door beside him. On 3, we're going to let it open, Cole said. Just a crack. Then I'm going to fire through it. You ready? No. 1. Cole. 2. Clara gripped the door frame, her whole body shaking. 3. They stepped back. The door swung open 6 inches. Cole shoved the barrel of his rifle through the gap and fired twice, fast, controlled bursts. Someone outside shouted. Footsteps scrambled away. Cole slammed the door shut and dropped the barricade back into place. He was breathing hard, sweat running down his face despite the cold. Did you hit them? Clara asked. Don't know, don't care. They're backing off. He was right. The sounds outside were fading, voices calling to each other, retreating. Clara slid down the wall, her legs giving out. The rifle fell from her hands. She stared at the broken window, at the blood on the snow outside, and felt something inside her crack. I shot him, she whispered. Cole knelt beside her. You defended yourself. I didn't even think. That's good. Thinking gets you killed. Clara looked up at him, her vision blurring. I don't want to be this person. What person? Someone who shoots people. Cole's expression softened. You're not. You're someone who refuses to die. There's a difference. He stood and moved back to the wounded man in the corner. The man was still conscious, pale and sweating. How bad is it? Cole asked. Bad enough, the man gasped. Cole examined the wound. A clean shot through the shoulder, no major arteries hit. He grabbed a cloth from the shelf and pressed it against the bleeding. Hold that, he told the man. Press hard. The man obeyed, wincing. What's your name? Cole asked. Daniels, Sam Daniels. All right, Sam, you're going to live, but you need to tell me what Marcus is planning. Sam hesitated. Don't make me ask twice, Cole said. He's going to wait until dark, then rush the cabin, all at once. How many? 4. Him, Porter, me, and a guy named Lynch. Cole glanced at Clara. 4. 1 already down. That left 3. When? Cole asked. I don't know. Soon. Cole nodded and stood. He crossed to the window and looked out. The light was failing fast. Another hour, maybe less, and it would be full dark. We're running out of time, he said. Clara pulled herself up, her legs still shaky. What do we do? Cole was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Then he turned to her, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Resolve. We don't wait for them, he said. We go to them. Clara's heart stopped. What? They're expecting us to stay put, to hide. We do the opposite. That's suicide. It's the only move they won't see coming. Cole, you can't. I can, and I will. Crossed the room and grabbed his coat. You're staying here. You barricade the door behind me. You don't open it for anyone but me. Understood? No, no, I'm not letting you do this. It's not your choice. Yes, it is. Clara's voice broke. You don't get to die for me. You don't get to throw your life away because you think I'm worth it. I'm not. Cole grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm but not rough. Listen to me. You are worth it. You're worth every risk I'm taking. And I'm not throwing my life away. I'm fighting for something that matters, for someone who matters. Tears burned in Clara's eyes. I can't lose you. You won't. You don't know that. No. But I know that if I don't do this, they'll keep coming. They'll keep pushing. And eventually, they'll get in. This is the only way to end it. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to scream at him, to make him see reason. But she knew he was right, knew that waiting was just another form of dying. Take me with you, she said. No. Cole, no, you're not trained for this. You'll get killed. Or worse, you'll get me killed. The words stung, but Clara knew they were true. She wasn't a fighter, wasn't a soldier. She was just a woman who'd learned to fire a rifle 3 hours ago. Then what am I supposed to do? She whispered. Cole pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. Clara pressed her face against his chest, breathing in the smell of wood smoke and cold air and something uniquely him. You survive, he said quietly. That's all you've ever needed to do, and you've been doing it your whole life. He pulled back and looked at her, his hands framing her face. If I don't come back, don't say that. If I don't come back, you take that trail east. You get to Milford. You find a woman named Sarah Keene. She runs the general store. You tell her Cole sent you. She'll help. Clara nodded, unable to speak. Cole leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. They stayed like that for a long moment, the world outside forgotten. Then he stepped back, grabbed his rifle, and moved to the door. Wait 10 minutes after I leave, he said. Then barricade it. Don't open it until you hear my voice. My voice, Clara, no one else's. I understand. Cole lifted the barricade. Cold air rushed in as he opened the door. He stepped out into the snow, and Clara watched him disappear into the gray twilight. Then the door swung shut, and she was alone. Clara stood frozen for a long moment, her mind blank. Then, slowly she moved to the door and dropped the barricade into place. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She turned and looked at Sam Daniels still slumped in the corner. He's going to die out there, Sam said quietly. Clara didn't answer. She picked up the rifle and moved to the window, pressing her face against the cold glass. Outside, the storm swallowed everything. And somewhere in the dark, Cole walked toward the men who wanted her dead. The minutes dragged like hours. Clara stood at the window, her breath fogging the glass, watching the place where Cole had vanished into the white. The storm had turned vicious, wind driving the snow sideways, visibility down to almost nothing. She couldn't see the fire anymore, couldn't see anything but gray and white and the dark shapes of trees bending under the wind's weight. Behind her, Sam Daniels groaned. Clara glanced back. He was still pressing the cloth to his shoulder, his face pale and slick with sweat. You should tie that off, he said through clenched teeth, or I'm going to bleed out before your man gets back. Clara hesitated. Every instinct told her not to get close to him, not to trust him. But he was right. The cloth was already soaked through, blood dripping onto the floor. She crossed the room, keeping the rifle within reach, and grabbed a length of rope from the shelf. She'd never tied a tourniquet before, but she'd seen it done once, years ago, when a farmhand had split his leg open on a piece of machinery. This is going to hurt, she said. Everything hurts. Clara wrapped the rope above the wound and pulled it tight. Sam sucked in a breath, his whole body going rigid. Tighter, he gasped. She pulled harder. The bleeding slowed. That'll hold, Sam said. He leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closed. Thank you. Clara stepped back, wiping her bloody hands on her skirt. Don't thank me. I'm the one who shot you. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair point. She returned to the window, her heart pounding. How long had it been? 5 minutes? 10? She'd lost track. He's not coming back, Sam said quietly. Clara's hands tightened on the windowsill. You don't know that? I know Porter. I know what he's capable of. Your man's good, but he's outnumbered. And Marcus, Sam paused. Marcus doesn't fight fair. What does that mean? Means he'll do whatever it takes to win. Doesn't matter if it's honorable or not. Clara's stomach twisted. She already knew that about Marcus. Had learned it the hard way over 4 years of marriage, but hearing it confirmed by someone else made it worse somehow. Why are you helping him? She asked. The money. That's it? Sam opened his eyes and looked at her. Lady, $200 is more than I've seen in a year. When Porter told me what the job was, I didn't ask questions. Didn't care. I just needed the money. Even if it meant dragging a woman back to a man who beats her? Sam flinched. I didn't know that part, not until Porter told me on the way up here. And you still came. Yeah, I still came. He looked away. I'm not proud of it. Clara didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if there was anything to say. Sam was just another broken man making broken choices, same as everyone else. If Cole kills them, she said quietly, what happens to you? I go home. Tell my wife I failed. We stay poor. He laughed bitterly. Maybe that's what I deserve. Clara turned back to the window. The storm showed no signs of letting up. The world outside was a wall of white, impenetrable and endless. Then she saw it, a flash of movement near the tree line, too far to make out details, but something was there. Her pulse spiked. She pressed closer to the glass, straining to see. Another flash. Closer this time. And then a figure emerged from the snow, walking slow and deliberate. Clara's breath caught. She couldn't tell who it was. The distance was too great, the visibility too poor. The figure kept coming. 30 yards. 20. Clara grabbed the rifle and moved to the door, her hands shaking. Who is it? Sam asked. I don't know. The figure was close enough now that Clara could make out the shape of a coat, the outline of a rifle. But the face was still hidden, obscured by the snow and the failing light. 10 yards. Clara's finger hovered over the trigger. 5 yards. The figure stopped, raised a hand, and then she heard it. Cole's voice, rough and tired but unmistakably his. Clara, it's me. Relief flooded through her so fast it nearly knocked her down. She fumbled with the barricade, hands clumsy with adrenaline, and yanked the door open. Cole stood on the threshold, snow clinging to his coat and beard, blood on his knuckles. He looked exhausted. But he was alive. Clara threw her arms around him, not caring about the cold or the blood or anything else. He was here. He was real. I thought... Her voice broke. I thought you weren't coming back. Cole's arms came up, wrapping around her, holding her tight. I told you I would. They stood like that for a long moment, the wind howling around them. Then Cole gently pulled back and stepped inside. Clara shut the door and dropped the barricade into place. What happened? She asked. Cole didn't answer right away. He moved to the fire and held his hands out to the warmth, his shoulders hunched with exhaustion. Cole, it's done, he said quietly. Clara's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean they're not coming back. She stared at him. All of them? 2 of them. Marcus and Lynch. And Porter? Gone. Took off the second he realized how it was going to end. Clara felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Marcus is dead? Cole nodded. She didn't know what to feel. Relief? Guilt? Something that tasted like both and neither at the same time? How? She whispered. Cole's jaw tightened. He came at me. I gave him a choice. He didn't take it. Clara sank into the nearest chair, her legs unable to hold her. Marcus was dead. The man who'd controlled her life for 4 years, who'd haunted her dreams and driven her into the mountains, dead. She should feel something, should feel free, but all she felt was numb. Did he... She couldn't finish the question. He didn't suffer, Cole said. It was quick. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. Cole moved to where Sam sat, slumped against the wall. He studied the makeshift tourniquet, then looked at Clara. You do this? Yes. Good work. He crouched down in front of Sam. You're lucky she's got a steady hand. That could have gone a lot worse. Sam managed a weak smile. Don't I know it? Can you walk? Maybe, with help. Cole stood and glanced at Clara. We need to get him out of here. That wound needs proper care or he's going to lose the arm. Where are we going to take him? Milford. It's the closest town. Clara's mind reeled. Milford. The place Cole had told her to run to if he didn't come back. Now they were going together. What about Porter? She asked. He's long gone. Headed back down the mountain soon as the shooting started. He won't be a problem. Cole moved to the shelves and started gathering supplies, blankets, rope, what was left of the food. Clara watched him work, her thoughts scattered and struggling to catch up with reality. Marcus was dead. She was free. Actually, truly free. The weight of it should have lifted, should have made her feel lighter, but instead it pressed down harder because freedom meant choices. And Clara hadn't made a real choice in so long she wasn't sure she remembered how. Clara. She looked up. Cole was watching her, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. You all right? He asked. I don't know. That's fair. He crossed the room and sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, he said quietly, but this is the beginning, not the end. The beginning of what? Whatever you want it to be. Clara looked down at her hands. They were still shaking, still covered in Sam's blood. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Then you've got time to figure it out. She met his eyes. What if I don't want to leave? Cole went very still. Leave where? Here. The cabin. The mountain. She swallowed hard. You. For a long moment, Cole didn't say anything. He just looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. Clara, he said finally, you don't owe me anything. You understand that? I didn't do this because I expected something in return. I did it because it was right. I know that. Then you also know that staying here, staying with me, isn't something you should decide right now. You're in shock, you're scared, and you're looking for something solid to hold on to. And what if you're that something? Cole's jaw worked. Then you'll still feel that way in a month, in 6 months. And if you do, we'll talk about it then. But not now. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she knew her own mind, but the truth was, she didn't. Everything inside her was chaos and noise and the lingering echo of fear. Okay, she whispered. Cole nodded and stood. Let's get Sam ready to move. We'll head out at first light. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of preparation. Cole fashioned a rough stretcher from wood and rope, something they could drag through the snow. Sam drifted in and out of consciousness, his face gray with pain and blood loss. Clara did what she could to help, but her mind was elsewhere, caught between the past she'd escaped and the future she couldn't quite imagine. Night fell hard and fast. The storm didn't let up. Cole built up the fire and made them all eat, rationing what little food was left. No one talked much. There wasn't anything left to say. Clara lay down on the cot, exhausted but unable to sleep. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the wind and the crackle of the fire and Sam's labored breathing. Marcus was dead. She kept turning it over in her mind, trying to make it real, but it felt distant, like something that had happened to someone else. Clara? She turned her head. Cole was sitting by the fire, watching her. You should sleep, he said. I can't. Try. She closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, memories did. Marcus's voice, his hands, the way he'd looked at her the last time she'd seen him, right before she'd run, cold and empty, like she was already dead. And now he was. Clara's chest tightened. She wasn't sad. She wasn't grieving, but she wasn't relieved either. She was just nothing. A blank space where feeling should have been. Eventually, exhaustion won. She drifted off into a fitful sleep, full of dreams she couldn't remember and didn't want to. When she woke, pale morning light was filtering through the broken window. The storm had finally passed, leaving the world silent and white. Cole was already up, securing the last of the supplies to the stretcher. Sam was awake too, propped against the wall, looking worse than he had the night before. Ready? Cole asked. Clara nodded and stood, pulling on her coat. Her whole body ached, muscles she didn't know she had screaming in protest. Cole and Clara lifted the stretcher, Sam groaning as they maneuvered him onto it. He was heavier than he looked, dead weight, in a way that made Clara's arms burn within seconds. "We'll take turns, what?" Cole said. "Can't drag him the whole way without stopping." They stepped out into the cold. The sun was just beginning to rise, turning the snow a pale gold. It was beautiful in a stark, unforgiving way. The kind of beauty that didn't care if you lived or died. Cole led the way, navigating by instinct and memory. Clara followed, pulling her half of the stretcher, her boots crunching through the fresh powder. The trail was barely visible, just a faint depression in the snow, but Cole moved like he could see it clear as day. They walked for hours. The sun climbed higher, but the temperature didn't. Clara's fingers went numb inside her gloves. Her face stung from the cold, but she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling, and she wasn't ready for that yet. "Hold up," Cole said. They set the stretcher down. Sam's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Cole checked his pulse, then the wound. Fresh blood had soaked through the bandage. "We need to move faster," Cole said. "I'm going as fast as I can. I know I'm not blaming you, but if we don't get him to a doctor soon—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. They picked up the stretcher and kept going. Clara's arms screamed in protest, but she pushed through it, digging deep for strength she didn't know she had. The terrain started to change. The trees thinned out. The ground sloped downward, gradually at first, then more steeply. Clara's feet slipped on the ice-slicked rocks, but she caught herself, refusing to fall. "How much further?" she asked. 2 miles, maybe less. 2 miles felt like 200, but Clara nodded and kept moving. The sun was high overhead when they finally saw it, a cluster of buildings in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys. Milford. It looked small, barely more than a dozen structures, but to Clara, it looked like the most beautiful place in the world. They pushed forward, the last stretch feeling both endless and too short. As they got closer, people started to notice. A man chopping wood stopped mid-swing. A woman hanging laundry turned to stare. Cole led them straight to a building with a faded sign that read General Store. He kicked the door open and pulled the stretcher inside. A woman behind the counter looked up, her eyes going wide. "Cole Mercer," she said. "Didn't think I'd see you again." "Sarah." Cole's voice was rough with exhaustion. "I need your help." Sarah came around the counter, taking in the scene, Cole, Clara, and the bloody man on the stretcher. She didn't ask questions, just nodded and moved to the back room. "Bring him through here," she called. Cole and Clara dragged the stretcher into a small room that looked like it doubled as storage and living quarters. Sarah cleared a table with one sweep of her arm, and they lifted Sam onto it. "What happened?" Sarah asked, already examining the wound. "Gunshot. Through and through. He's been bleeding for about 12 hours. Sarah's mouth tightened. "That's bad, but I've seen worse." She looked at Clara. "You know how to boil water?" Clara nodded. "Good. There's a pot on the stove. Fill it and get it going. I need clean cloth too. There's some in the drawer by the sink." Clara moved fast, grateful for something to do. She filled the pot, set it on the stove, and started rummaging through the drawer for cloth. Behind her, she could hear Sarah giving Cole instructions, her voice calm and efficient. Clara had never met this woman before, but she liked her already. No nonsense, no fear, just action. The water boiled. Sarah used it to clean the wound, then stitched it with quick, precise movements. Sam was unconscious now, which was probably for the best. "He'll live," Sarah said finally, "but he needs rest, a lot of it." Cole nodded. "Can he stay here?" "For a few days. After that, he's on his own." "Fair enough." Sarah washed her hands and turned to look at Clara properly for the first time. Her gaze was sharp, assessing. "And who are you?" she asked. "Clara Hayes." "She's the reason we were up there," Cole said. Sarah's eyebrows rose. "That's so? It's a long story." "I've got time." Cole glanced at Clara. She nodded, giving him permission. He told Sarah everything, or at least the parts that mattered. Clara running from Marcus, Cole finding her in the snow, the siege, the confrontation. Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression giving nothing away. When Cole finished, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Clara. Your husband's dead? She asked. Yes. Good. Men like that don't deserve to breathe the same air as the rest of us. Sarah's voice was flat, matter of fact. You need a place to stay? Clara blinked. I don't know. I hadn't thought. Well, think now, because winter's not over, and you can't go back up that mountain. Clara looked at Cole. He was watching her, waiting. I don't have any money, Clara said quietly. Didn't ask if you did. Asked if you needed a place to stay. Clara's throat tightened. Yes, I do. Then it's settled. You can stay in the back room. There's a cot and a stove. It's not much, but it's warm. I can work to pay you back. Sarah smiled for the first time. I was hoping you'd say that. I could use the help around here. Clara felt something loosen in her chest. Not quite hope. Not yet. But something close to it. Cole cleared his throat. I should get back. Clara turned to him, her heart sinking. Already? Animals need feeding, cabin needs repairs, and I've been gone too long as it is. When will you… She stopped herself. She had no right to ask when he'd come back, had no claim on him, but Cole smiled just a little. I'll be back in a few weeks. Need to restock supplies anyway. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. Cole moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at her. You're going to be all right, Clara. You know that? I hope so. I know so. And then he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him, leaving Clara standing in a stranger's store in a town she'd never seen, with a future she couldn't quite picture. But for the first time in as long as she could remember, that future was hers to choose. Sarah touched her arm gently. Come on, let me show you where you'll be staying. Clara followed her to the back room. It was small, like Sarah had said, barely big enough for the cot and the stove, but it was clean, and it was warm, and it was hers. Thank you, Clara said. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen how much work running this place is. Sarah left her alone. Clara sat down on the cot, her whole body finally giving in to the exhaustion. She looked around the small room, taking it in. This was her life now, whatever that meant. She thought about Cole, already making his way back up the mountain. Thought about the cabin and the snow and the silence that probably felt different now that she wasn't there. She thought about Marcus, lying somewhere in the snow and felt nothing. Just a cold, empty space where fear used to live. And she thought about herself, about the woman she'd been and the woman she was now and the woman she might become. It would take time, she knew that. You didn't survive what she'd survived and come out whole on the other side. There would be nightmares. There would be moments when the fear came back, sharp and sudden and overwhelming, but there would also be mornings and choices, and the slow, difficult work of becoming someone new. Clara lay down on the cot and closed her eyes. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the town, voices, footsteps, the rhythmic thunk of an axe splitting wood. Normal sounds, human sounds. The sounds of a life she was only just beginning to understand could be hers. She didn't sleep right away. But when she did, for the first time in months, she didn't dream of running. The first week in Milford passed in a haze of motion. Clara worked from dawn until her hands went numb, stocking shelves, sweeping floors, learning the rhythm of Sarah's store. The work was simple, repetitive, and exactly what she needed. It kept her mind busy, kept the memories at bay. Sarah didn't ask questions, didn't pry. She just handed Clara tasks and let her work through whatever she needed to work through. It was a kindness Clara hadn't expected and didn't know how to repay. Sam Daniels stayed in the back room for 3 days before he was strong enough to sit up. On the 4th day, he managed to walk to the front of the store, one hand pressed against the wall for balance. I'm leaving tomorrow, he told Sarah. Sarah looked up from the ledger she was writing in. You sure you're ready? Ready enough. I've imposed long enough. Where will you go? Home. Back to my wife. Tell her I failed and we're staying poor. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Maybe get a job that doesn't involve hunting people. Clara, who'd been organizing canned goods on a nearby shelf, paused. Sam noticed. I'm sorry, he said, for what it's worth. Clara turned to face him. Are you?
Yeah, I am. He looked down at his bandaged shoulder. I thought it was just a job. Thought I could separate what I was doing from what it meant. But I was wrong, and I almost died because of it. You did die, Clara said quietly. Just not the way you expected.
Sam met her eyes. He understood what she meant. The man who'd come up the mountain hunting her for money wasn't the same man standing here now. Something had changed, something fundamental. I hope you find what you're looking for, Sam said. I hope you do too. He left the next morning before the sun was up. Clara watched from the window as he walked down the main road, his gait still unsteady, but determined. She wondered if he'd make it home, wondered if his wife would forgive him for coming back empty-handed. She wondered if forgiveness was even the right word for what they both needed. The days turned into weeks. Clara settled into the rhythm of the store, learning which customers liked to talk and which preferred silence, which goods moved fast and which gathered dust on the shelves. She was good at it, better than she'd expected, Sarah noticed. You've got to head for business, Sarah said one afternoon. Clara looked up from the inventory list she'd been organizing. I'm just doing what you tell me. No, you're not. You're thinking 3 steps ahead, anticipating what needs doing before I ask. That's different. Clara didn't know what to say to that. Compliments still felt foreign, like words spoken in a language she was only beginning to understand. Thank you, she managed. Sarah set down the crate she'd been carrying and leaned against the counter. Can I ask you something? All right. What are you waiting for? Clara frowned. I don't understand. Cole, you're waiting for him to come back. I can see it. Every time that door opens, you look up hoping it's him. Clara's chest tightened. I'm not. Don't lie. Not to me and not to yourself. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just asking what happens when he does come back. Clara looked down at her hands. She'd been asking herself the same question every night, lying on the cot in the back room, staring at the ceiling. I don't know, she admitted. Do you want to go back up there? To the cabin? Sometimes. Other times I think I should stay here, build something for myself that doesn't depend on anyone else. And what's stopping you from doing both? Clara looked up. What do you mean? Sarah smiled. I mean, people aren't either or, Clara. You can build a life for yourself and still want someone in it. Those things aren't opposites. But what if I'm not ready? What if I'm just... She struggled for the words. What if I'm just grabbing onto the first person who was kind to me? Then you'll figure that out, and you'll make a different choice. Sarah crossed her arms. But you can't figure anything out by standing still. At some point, you have to move. Clara knew she was right, knew that staying frozen in uncertainty was just another kind of cage. What would you do? Clara asked. Sarah laughed. I do what I always do. Jump first and figure out the landing later. Has that worked out for you? Sometimes, sometimes not. But at least I've lived. She pushed off the counter. Now help me get these sacks to the back. Winter's not done with us yet. They worked in companionable silence, and Clara tucked Sarah's words away to think about later. 3 weeks after they'd arrived in Milford, Cole came back. Clara was sweeping the front steps when she saw him, a lone figure walking down the main road, a pack on his back, and that same unhurried stride she remembered. Her heart kicked into a faster rhythm. She set the broom aside and waited. Cole climbed the steps and stopped in front of her. He looked tired but whole, his beard a little longer, his eyes a little clearer. Clara, he said. Cole. They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. You look good, he said finally. So do you. Can I come in? Clara stepped aside. Cole entered the store, nodding at Sarah, who was behind the counter. Mercer, Sarah said. Good to see you still breathing. You too, Sarah. Come to restock? Among other things. Sarah's gaze flicked to Clara, then back to Cole. I'll be in the back if you need me. She disappeared through the door, leaving them alone. Cole set his pack down and looked around the store, taking it in. You've been busy. Sarah keeps me working. Good, that's good. He turned to face her fully. How are you? Clara considered the question. really considered it. I'm better. Not healed, but better. That's all anyone can ask for. What about you? Cole shrugged. Same as always, the mountain doesn't change much. Do you like it that way? He paused. I used to. Now I'm not so sure. Clara's pulse quickened. She wanted to ask what he meant, but the words stuck in her throat. Cole saved her the trouble. I've been thinking, he said, about what happens next. Next? With us. If there is an us. Clara's breath caught. I've been thinking about that too. And? She looked down at her hands, then back up at him. I don't want to make the same mistake I made with Marcus. I don't want to run from one man straight into another without knowing who I am first. Cole nodded slowly. That's smart. But I also don't want to lie and say I don't feel something, because I do. What do you feel? Clara took a breath. This was the hard part. The part where she had to be honest, even if it hurt. I feel safe with you, and I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if safety is a good reason to... She gestured vaguely between them. To whatever this could be. Cole stepped closer, not crowding her, just closing the distance. Safety's not a bad place to start, he said. But you're right. It's not enough on its own. He paused. Can I tell you what I feel? Clara nodded. I feel like I've been waiting for something my whole life without knowing what it was. And then I found you in the snow and I thought, this is what I've been waiting for. Not to save someone, not to be a hero, just to have someone in my life who sees me and doesn't look away. Clara's eyes stung. Cole, I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm not even asking you to come back with me. I'm just telling you that if you want to figure out who you are, I'm willing to wait while you do that. And if, at the end of it, you decide I'm not part of the answer, I'll accept that. Clara felt something crack open inside her chest. Not breaking, opening. What if I don't want you to wait? She asked quietly. Cole's expression shifted. What do you mean? I mean, what if I want to figure it out with you, not for you or because of you, with you? He studied her face, searching for something. You sure about that? No, but I'm not sure about anything right now. And I'm tired of waiting until I am. A slow smile crossed Cole's face, the first real smile she'd seen from him. All right then, he said. All right? All right, we'll figure it out together. Clara felt lighter than she had in months, maybe years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a beginning. So what does that look like? She asked. Cole thought for a moment. I don't know. Maybe I spend more time down here. Maybe you come up to the cabin when you're ready. Maybe we just take it slow, see what fits. I'd like that. Me too. Sarah emerged from the back room carrying a crate. She set it down with a deliberate thump. You two done making eyes at each other? She asked. Because I've got work that needs doing. Clara laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange and good and a little like crying. We're done, she said. Good. Cole, you staying in town tonight? If there's room. There's always room. You can take the cot in the back. Clara can stay with me upstairs. Cole raised an eyebrow. You sure? I'm sure. Now make yourself useful and help me move these crates. Cole got to work. Clara watched him for a moment, then grabbed a crate of her own. They worked together, the three of them, until the light started to fail and Sarah declared it time to close up shop. That night, Sarah made dinner, venison stew and bread that was only a little stale. They ate at the small table in Sarah's quarters above the store, the conversation easy and unhurried. Clara couldn't remember the last time she'd sat at a table with people who weren't constantly calculating, weren't waiting for her to make a wrong move. Tell me something, Sarah said, looking at Cole. You planning on staying a hermit forever? Cole shrugged. Hadn't planned on changing. And now? He glanced at Clara. Now I'm open to possibilities. Sarah grunted. Good. Because that cabin's no place to grow old alone. You speaking from experience? Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just tired of watching good people waste their lives in the wrong places. Cole smiled. You trying to run me off my mountain, Sarah?
I'm trying to make sure you've got a reason to come down from it now and then. Clara felt her cheeks warm. Sarah noticed and grinned. Don't mind me, Sarah said. I'm just an old woman who likes to meddle. You're not old, Clara said. Old enough to know better, young enough to do it anyway. She stood and started collecting plates. Now get some rest. Both of you. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Clara helped with the dishes, then followed Sarah to the small bedroom at the back. There were 2 narrow beds, simple but clean. Clara had been sleeping in one since she arrived. Thank you, Clara said, for everything. Sarah waved a hand. You've earned your keep, and then some. I don't just mean the work. I mean, Clara struggled to find the words. I mean for not asking me to be anything other than what I am. Sarah's expression softened. You're a good woman, Clara Hayes. You've just been told otherwise for so long you started believing it. But that doesn't make it true. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. Get some sleep, Sarah said gently. Things always look clearer in the morning. Clara lay in bed that night, listening to Sarah's soft breathing and the creak of the building settling. She thought about Cole, asleep in the room below. Thought about the cabin in the mountains and the store in Milford and all the space between. She thought about Marcus, and for the first time she didn't feel guilt or fear or even relief. She just felt nothing. He was gone. That chapter was closed, and whatever came next was hers to write. The next few weeks fell into a new pattern. Cole stayed in Milford, helping Sarah with repairs and heavy work around the store. He was good with his hands, fixing things Clara hadn't even realized were broken. And in the evenings, after the store closed, the 3 of them would sit together and talk. About nothing, about everything, about the small things that made up a life. Clara watched Cole carefully during those weeks. Watched how he interacted with people in town, patient with the children, respectful with the elders, unfailingly polite even when someone was rude. She watched how he talked to Sarah with the easy affection of someone who'd known her a long time. And she watched how he looked at her, Clara, when he thought she wasn't paying attention. There was no rush, no pressure, just the slow unfolding of something that might become more if they let it. One afternoon, Clara was in the back sorting through a delivery when Cole found her. Got a minute? He asked. Always. What do you need? Nothing. He paused. I wanted to ask if you'd come up to the cabin with me, just for a day. I want to show you something. Clara's heart skipped. What is it? You'll see when we get there. She studied his face. He looked nervous, which was strange. She'd seen him face down armed men without flinching, but asking her this seemed to cost him something. When? She asked. Tomorrow. We can leave at dawn, be back before dark. Clara nodded. All right. Yeah? Yeah. Cole smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. Good. I'll be ready. They left the next morning just as the sun was starting to paint the sky pink and gold. The walk was easier this time. No stretcher, no wounded man, no fear dogging their steps. Just 2 people walking through the snow, their breath fogging in the cold air. Cole led her along the trail she remembered, but instead of heading straight to the cabin, he veered off onto a smaller path that cut through a dense stand of pines. Where are we going? Clara asked. You'll see. They walked for another 20 minutes, the path climbing steadily, and then they broke through the trees and Clara stopped dead. In front of her was a clearing, maybe an acre of flat land sheltered on 3 sides by rock and trees. The view stretched out for miles, valleys and peaks rolling away into the distance. It was breathtaking. What is this place? She asked. It's mine. I bought it years ago back when I first came up here. Always thought I might build something on it someday. Like what? Cole turned to look at her. I don't know, a house maybe, something bigger than the cabin, something with room for… He paused. Room for more than just me. Clara's breath caught. She looked around the clearing again, seeing it differently now, seeing what it could be. Why are you showing me this? She asked quietly. Because I want you to know it's here. I want you to know that if you decide… He stopped, started again. If we decide to make this work, there's space for it, room to build something new.
Clara felt tears sting her eyes. Not sad tears. Something else. Cole, You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to see it. But Clara did have something to say. She'd been holding it in for weeks, afraid to speak it out loud, afraid it would disappear if she did. But standing here, in this place Cole had kept secret and sacred, she couldn't hold it anymore. I want to stay, she said. Not in Milford, not in the cabin. Here, with you. I want to build something that's ours. Cole went very still. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He crossed the distance between them and took her hands in his. They were rough, calloused, warm. It won't be easy, he said. Building up here. The winters are hard. The work's harder. I know. And I'm not... He struggled for words. I'm not an easy man. I've got scars, things I don't talk about. So do I. I know, but Clara, I need you to understand, if we do this, I'm in it. All the way. I don't do halfway. Neither do I. Not anymore. Cole searched her face, looking for doubt, for hesitation. He didn't find any. All right then, he said. We'll do it. We'll do it. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, and Clara let herself lean into him. Not because she needed saving, not because she was afraid, just because she wanted to. They stood like that for a long time. The wind whispering through the pines, the sun climbing higher in the sky. And Clara thought about all the steps that had brought her here. The fear, the running, the desperate choice to walk into a storm rather than stay in a cage. She thought about the woman she'd been and the woman she was becoming. She wasn't the same person who'd collapsed in the snow. That woman had been running from something. This woman, the one standing in Cole's arms, looking out at a future she was choosing for herself. She was running towards something. And that made all the difference. They walked back to the cabin together. Cole showed her around with new eyes, pointing out where things could be improved, where they'd need to expand, what would need doing before winter came again. We'll start small, he said. Get through this season, make sure we're ready for the next one, then we'll start building. What do we do in the meantime? We learn. We figure out how to live together, how to work together, all the small things that make up a partnership. Clara liked that word, partnership. It felt equal, felt right. They spent the rest of the day at the cabin, talking through plans and possibilities. When the light started to fail, they made the walk back to Milford together, arriving just as Sarah was closing up the store. Well? Sarah asked, looking between them. Well, what? Clara said, trying to keep her face neutral. Don't play coy with me. I can see it written all over both of you. Cole laughed. We're going to build something, up on the mountain, together. Sarah's face broke into a wide smile. Took you long enough. We wanted to be sure, Clara said. And now you are? Clara looked at Cole, then back at Sarah. Yeah, we are. Sarah pulled Clara into a hug, fierce and sudden. Good. You deserve this. You both do. When she pulled back, Clara saw tears in her eyes. You'll still come down and visit, though, right? Sarah asked. I'm not losing my best worker. I'll visit, I promise. Good, because I'll need help with spring inventory, and I'm not doing that alone. They laughed, and Clara felt something settle in her chest. This was it. This was what home felt like, not a place, people, connections. Choices made freely and lives built with intention. The winter slowly gave way to spring. Clara and Cole split their time between Milford and the cabin, preparing, planning, gathering supplies. Sarah helped however she could, connecting them with builders and craftsmen, making sure they had what they needed. The building started in late spring. It was slow, hard work, clearing land, laying foundations, raising walls. Clara learned to swing a hammer, to measure and cut, to problem solve when something didn't fit the way it was supposed to. Her hands blistered, then calloused. Her muscles ached in new ways. But she loved it. She loved building something from nothing, loved seeing the house take shape, board by board, nail by nail, loved knowing that every piece of it was there because she and Cole had chosen it, had worked for it, had refused to settle for less than what they wanted. Some days were harder than others. There were arguments about design, about priorities, about things that had nothing to do with the house and everything to do with two people learning how to be together. But they worked through it, talked it out, learned when to push and when to step back. And slowly, the house grew. By late summer, the frame was up. By fall, the roof was on and the windows were in. By the time winter came again, their second winter together, they had 4 walls, a working stove, and beds that didn't creak when you turned over. It wasn't finished, wouldn't be for another year at least, but it was theirs. On the first night they slept in the new house, Clara lay awake listening to the wind test the walls, checking for weaknesses. The walls held. Everything held. "You asleep?" Cole asked from beside her. "No." "What are you thinking about?" Clara considered the question. "I'm thinking about how different everything is. A year ago, I was running. I thought that's all I'd ever do. Run from one thing to the next, never stopping, never building anything that lasted. And now? Now I'm not running anymore. I'm here. I'm staying." She turned to look at him in the darkness. "I'm home." Cole reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "So am I." They lay like that, hand in hand, listening to the wind and the creak of new wood settling and the sound of their own breathing. Clara thought about Marcus, briefly, for the first time in months, not with fear or anger or even pity, just with the distant recognition of someone who'd been part of her story but wasn't part of her ending. She thought about the woman who'd tried to kill him with a kitchen knife and couldn't. That woman had thought violence was the only way out, that becoming like him was the price of freedom. But she'd been wrong. Freedom hadn't come from killing Marcus. It had come from walking away, from choosing a different path, from learning that strength wasn't about how hard you could hit. It was about how far you could walk when every step felt impossible. Clara had walked far, farther than she'd ever thought possible. And she'd found something at the end of that walk, something worth staying for. Spring came again, bringing with it warmer days and the smell of earth coming back to life. Clara planted a garden in the clearing, vegetables mostly, but also flowers. She liked the way they looked against the raw wood of the house, like proof that beauty could grow anywhere if you gave it the chance. Sarah visited often, usually bringing news from town and supplies they'd ordered. She'd aged a little in the past year, moved a little slower, but her mind was sharp as ever. "You're happy," Sarah observed one afternoon, sitting on the porch they'd just finished building. Clara looked out at the garden, at the mountains beyond, at Cole working on the shed that would house their tools. "I am." "Good. You've earned it." "Have I?" Sarah laughed. "What kind of question is that?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I just got lucky, like I stumbled into this." "Luck's a part of it, but luck's just opportunity meeting preparation. You were ready for this, Clara. You'd survived enough to know what you wanted when you found it." Clara thought about that. Maybe. No, maybe about it. Sarah stood, brushing off her skirt. "Now come help me carry these boxes inside before my back gives out." They worked together, and Clara was grateful, not just for the help, but for the friendship. Sarah had become more than an employer, more than a friend. She'd become family. The years that followed weren't perfect. There were hard winters when supplies ran low. There were seasons when the work felt endless and the progress impossible. There were moments when Clara woke in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced she was back in the house with Marcus. But Cole was always there, patient, steady, waiting for the fear to pass. And it did pass. Slowly, but it passed. They built a life together. Not the life Clara had imagined for herself, but something better, something real. A partnership built on trust and work, and the daily choice to stay, even when staying was hard. They had arguments, had days when they barely spoke to each other, had moments when Clara wondered if she'd made a mistake, if she'd traded one cage for another. But then she'd look around at the house they'd built, at the garden she'd planted, at the life they were creating together, and she'd know the truth. This wasn't a cage. This was freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to stay, freedom to build something that mattered with someone who saw her, really saw her, and didn't look away. 5 years after Clara had collapsed in the snow, she stood on the porch of the house she and Cole had built and watched the sun set over the mountains. The house was finished now, every room, every detail, exactly the way they'd planned it. Cole came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Clara leaned back against him. "I'm thinking about how far we've come. Any regrets?" "Not a single one." They stood like that until the sun disappeared behind the peaks and the stars started coming out, one by one, like small lights being lit in the darkness. Clara thought about the woman she'd been. Broken, afraid, convinced that survival was the best she could hope for. And she thought about the woman she'd become, strong, whole, building a life she'd chosen for herself. The difference wasn't the absence of fear, it was the presence of choice. And that, Clara realized, was what freedom really meant. Not the absence of struggle, not the promise of easy days, just the simple, powerful right to choose what you fought for, to decide what mattered, to build something worth staying for. She'd spent 4 years running from a life that was killing her. She'd spent 5 years building a life worth living. And if she'd learned anything in those years, it was this: you don't find yourself by running. You find yourself by standing still long enough to see what you're made of, by choosing, again and again, to be the person you want to become instead of the person fear tells you to be. Clara had made that choice, and she'd keep making it every day for the rest of her life, because that's what survival really meant. Not just staying alive, but staying yourself. Staying true to the person you fought so hard to become. The stars came out in full, filling the sky with light. And Clara stood there, wrapped in Cole's arms, watching them appear one by one, small, distant, constant. Just like hope. Just like home. Just like the life she'd built from nothing in the heart of the mountains, where she'd learned that the coldest places can teach you the most about warmth, and that sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't fighting, it's choosing to stay.